Hello everybody, just want to give you a little quick heads up about this video. It's very unscripted. I'm very ill at the moment. I don't have time to edit and write a whole video. It's not going to be as succinct as the video as I normally would make. So just bear that in mind. We go on for quite a while talking about the Amnesia series, Frictional Games as a whole. Sorry that I couldn't make it anything bigger and better, but I'm very ill and I need to put myself first. But I need to make a bunker video because I have woken up every day for the last like 3 months needing to make a video on it. And people have been asking for it, so I have to do it. So here it is. Again, I'm just sorry it wasn't more focused and better edited, and I wish I had higher energy, but yeah. Anyway, let's get into it. Right, hello everybody, it's me, world famous, amazing baker, Ramen Llama. I was going to do a scripted video with lots of flashy edits and stuff. I'm still going to be editing this video, but I'm just going to do a sort of a commentary. I haven't been very well for months, and it's really been impacting every facet of my life. Unfortunately, I have wanted to make a bunker video for a really long time and haven't. We have a lot of more teasers than we did when I first started scripting this video. I've scripted it a bunch of times and I just don't have the energy to actually record and edit something proper, so you're getting this. You wanted a bunker video, you'll get a bunker video. I'm just really sorry it's not going to be like I normally make the high edited stuff. I have all of the interviews pulled up as well. Because there's a lot of information in the interviews actually if you've been paying attention. So one of the things I want to point out, not that it really makes much difference, the area we see in Monster Encounter clip is the same area as we see in this clip. It's the Strategic Operations area. You can tell just the design of the room, so that's the area. Just something that I noticed that I thought I'd bring up. The delay, I'll bring that up as well. I predicted the delay like a couple days after launch, and I figured it's because Frictional want to be like a real developer who delay games. So I'm like, okay, they'll probably do that to raise up a little bit of notoriety. Being the conspiracy theorist that I am, I imagine it was intentional. Although probably wasn't. It probably was like they genuinely got ill and had to postpone it. But I don't know, the way the Thomas Script's mind works, I see through it and I'm like, it might have been planned. Maybe. Or at least it might have been on the checklist of things to do, delay a game. So what do we know mechanically about this game? Well, I'll pull this up right here. Mechanically, we're going to have a flashlight. It's a light source. I'm going to assume it's also going to be a tool used to scare away enemies. The reason I say that is because if you don't have any ammunition or anything like that, I can potentially see a mechanic where if you stare at the enemy with the flashlight and shine the light at his face because he doesn't like the light, I can potentially see a mechanic where you can stare at him to like paralyze him for a couple of seconds so you can run away. But I imagine that would be like too much showing the player, the enemy, so that probably isn't how it works, but it's just an idea that I had. I could see them doing something like that. Stopwatch, tool to measure time until the generator runs out of fuel. The generators, I assume they're going to be tools to open doorways to new areas and then keep the lights on. Apparently there's only going to be one central generator that you have to keep coming back to, but I can imagine there would be different generators around that you'll need to access certain areas. Gramophone, I haven't seen anyone mention this. I don't know if this is actually in the game or not. In one of the trailers we hear this. To me, that seems very diegetic, because it's always in one ear, or non-diegetic, I can't remember the term, but it seems like it's a sound that's being generated in the environment, so I'm assuming that's going to be a way that we can play music in one room, maybe to lure the enemy there for a period of time, potentially. The gun is a weapon, and it's also a tool to bypass doors, ignite explosives, etc. Grenade weapon, another tool similar to the gun. The flare is going to be probably a light source, but I don't think it's going to be a mobile one. A tool to ignite oil, gas grenade, scare away enemies, and the gas mask is just to protect yourself from toxic areas. Now, what do I think the plot is? Now, bear with me, we're gonna be going, I mean, it's a theory, so it's probably not gonna be right. I'm gonna guess the enemy is some form of harvester from the Dark World, and they use the bunker as a hunting ground for the soldiers. Or, very unlikely, the enemy is a mutant pig from Machine for Pigs that survived the 1900 swine attack, bred, morphed into a bigger variant, and the military was called in to destroy it. It's unlikely, as the swine attack was in London, and bunker seems largely set either in France or French-occupied territory, so it probably isn't going to be that. But the only reason that I think it could be Machine for Pigsy is because the enemy sounds distinctly, very much like a pig in that game. And also, well, the bunker is set in Amnesia universe, and another addition to its lore. Now that's really interesting because one thing that Rebirth did a lot was expand on the Dark World in a really strange way. It gave us so much information about the 7 rulers of the Bloodline, about how the kingdom operates and what factions exist within the Otherworld kingdom. And I imagine from the Steam page's description, what diabolical nightmare lurks underneath this hellscape. I imagine we're going to go back to the Dark World, and seeing as the game is essentially the exact same game, these are the complete same specs as Rebirth, it's the same HPL 3.5 engine that they're working with. I guess they just copied the store page and then just changed all the text to be bunker related, but all of these are exactly the same, which makes sense considering it's the same game on the same engine. It's, you know how Machine for Pigs was a modded version of Dark Descent that released 3 years later? The bunker is just a modded version of Rebirth, released 3 years later, funnily enough. But I imagine the Dark World's coming back. I did try actually and look up IMDb pages to see if anyone listed, and social media accounts, to see if anything that hinted at some of the characters returning, but I couldn't find anything, so it probably is just NDA stuff. So that's my prediction for the enemy, and why it could potentially be there. The plot is interesting. I don't really have a lot of theories for the plot, either, and the amnesia method is quite interesting. Dark Descent, we had amnesia by potion and chemicals. Machine for Pigs, we had amnesia by illness. Rebirth, we had amnesia from illness, and the Queen brought on the disease and just it made her forget everything. Now, the only thing that they haven't done for amnesia yet is blunt force trauma, and I imagine that if anyone is going to get blunt force trauma and have amnesia from it in an amnesia game, it would probably be a soldier surrounded by weapons and military equipment and World War I propaganda. So I'd imagine that the method of amnesia this time isn't going to be the Queen giving you a disease, or Henry making a potion that makes him forget. I don't think it's going to be that. I think he's going to get hit on the head, either by a creature or a friend, maybe. So what I think happened is they were trying to expand the bunker to accommodate more soldiers. They stumbled upon a Mithraeum, discovered sleeping creature. Henry was tasked to guard the creature to stop it from escaping. He left, or he was told to be the sacrifice for the creature so that it would save them. He didn't do it. He got his teammates killed, and then one of his mates were like, "Oh, that cuntish," bonked him, and that's how he has amnesia, and everyone else just got killed. So that's one theory. The other one is, a rift opened up and the Empress offered to spare Henry as long as he fed her his soldiers. She curses him with ghoul disease, or he gets blunt force trauma, the fellow soldier realized. They're the only ways that I could think of that he would get amnesia in this scenario, but we're working with very limited information, and I'm just pulling different threads. I don't have any other ideas, so it probably isn't either of these, but if I had to tie in the amnesia, you're a bad protagonist plot, because that's always the goal with this, is to make the character a morally grey area. So I would imagine that Henry has done something bad, and it could have potentially cost him his friends' lives and the state of his comrades and the bunker in general. So I would imagine that something along the lines of the Queen offering to spare him as long as he fed her sacrifices for Vitae stuff. Because again, I'm only roping the Queen in because this looks very much like a similar use of assets, and they said they want to expand on the lore, and it looks like they're going to be expanding on the lore again, so we probably will see the Dark World again, at least in some capacity. That's another reason I linked it back to Machine for Pigs, is because we don't really know if it's going to connect to Rebirth at all, being 20 years in the past behind it, and it probably isn't going to be connected very much to Dark Descent, considering Dark Descent is 80 years behind it, 90 years or whatever. Speaking of, that brings up a really important thing to mention. During Rebirth's whole release, we had all of these little teasers, very interesting. A lot of them added up and connected in ways to Rebirth's story. The only one that doesn't connect at all to Rebirth's story, and it's very interesting, is this. This whole thing, 1918, a lot of these pictures are taken from 1918, 1917. I went through this a couple times just trying to piece together anything bunker related. I think this has been a bunker teaser this whole time. Not specifically bunker itself, but the Amnesia universe itself. Because this has no relation whatsoever. There's a control stone on the ground, and that's the only thing that connects it to Rebirth whatsoever. None of this is like Algeria. Oh no, some of this is Algiers. Dr. Faust gets sent from Algiers or something. Yeah, these are just stock images that have been doctored and changed and stuff. But there's a control stone, that is it. We see that from the documentary crew, they find the control stone in a different box video. All of this is Amnesia lore. In such a strange way. There it is there, it's in the thumbnail. The cadaver, that's probably something to do with Rebirth. People think it's Tazzy, blah 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 blah, we have no idea. But the only thing that we can point to definitively and say this isn't Rebirth connected at all is this video. It's very much set in World War I. There's different sites, which is really interesting. Now, I don't think this is specifically bunker related either, but it is very strange how this was brought up and included for seemingly no reason or payoff or connection to Rebirth or any other part of the established Amnesia canon. Oh, H154, maybe Henry. Ooh, I have no idea. I don't think so. That was just off the cuff. I noticed something. Dr. Faust receives transport to Site 17A. 1918, you know. So there might be something to think about with this video. It's the only connective tissue we've got to a time period. I know we have World War I related things in Rebirth, but this is like the most connective tissue we've got. Connecting to Bunker, just some random fuck off video that was uploaded years ago. Take that for what you will. I don't know if this connects at all, but maybe it does. It's so strange. That's my entire list of stuff that I wrote down. Let me show you some of the other scripts that I wrote. Oh yeah, this is one of the scripts I started writing. You can pause and read it if you want. I'm not making this video anymore. It was talking about why Frictional make some of the decisions they do, why we won't be getting certain games released in the future, what this Amnesia game means to the franchise, and I'm excited for this one. I wasn't excited for Rebirth because I didn't think they could pull it off, but after like considering Rebirth a lot and looking at it from so many angles and then reassessing my thought on it, I fucking love the game. For me, Amnesia has always been about interpersonal connections and the relationships that other characters form, and every Amnesia game explores that to some degree. Rebirth very heavily exploring the relationships between characters, and that's such a huge part of Amnesia to me, so I'm actually kind of worried that this time, with no emphasis on characterization, it's actually going to miss that to focus more on the gameplay. So that was kind of like an inverse opinion shift that I've had now, which is really, really strange. But if you want to read that, you can disagree with me, because I tell you to shut the fuck up about the Soma sequel. Please shut the fuck up. Please shut the fuck up about a Penumbra remaster. You guys are so fucking annoying, it's not gonna happen, just leave it. I'm so mad. I don't like this fan base at all. That's another reason that I didn't want to make a video on Bunker, is just because I kind of can't be bothered. I don't really enjoy being part of the fan base. I feel so disconnected to it and everybody's wants, and everything that everyone spouts in the Discord server is fucking awful. Somebody blocked me on Twitter because I think they thought I was being misogynistic, and I don't think I was. I don't know if I can explain myself very well. Don't hunt this person down, obviously, but they very much didn't agree with me to the point they blocked me. They said something along the lines of, another male protagonist, sad face, so I calmly reminded them, Amnesia so far, the four Amnesia experiences we've had, it's been 2 male and 2 female protagonists, so having Henry now as a male, I don't think that makes a big issue, and you shouldn't really focus on a character's gender. What's more important is that they're an interesting, well-rounded, strong character. Not, oh, they're a woman, I will agree with them. Oh, they're a man, I will agree with them. Bear in mind, there was still a lot of misogynistic comments about Tazzy, and some people saying really horrible things. Misogyny is still a very big issue. However, when it comes to being a protagonist of a video game who literally doesn't fucking exist, I wouldn't worry too much about having another male protagonist, okay? It's fine, it's absolutely fine. This was another script I started writing and then gave up, because I just couldn't be bothered to keep working on it. You can read this if you want. It does include some quite interesting things. Not going to be a first-person shooter, so if you're in the Hell Yeah Combat Club, you'll get your hopes up, and if you're in the opposite camp of Guns Ruin Horror Club, then don't worry, the gun is only a method of death prevention, not a method of monster elimination. It's not a shooting gallery, ammo is scarce. Blah 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 blah. Yeah, Justine and Tassie were damn good characters with way more depth and personality than both Daniel and Oswald. I think they're the best protagonists in the entire Frictional catalogue. I love Justine and Tassie, they're my favourite protagonists. I don't like Simon at all. I think he's fucking obnoxious and annoying. You know how everybody said Rebirth Tassie talks too much? I was fine with it. From a realistic standpoint, she talks just about as much as anybody would in that situation. From an immersion standpoint, she talks too much. It's not because she's a fucking woman and I don't like her, because I'm against women. I love women. for everybody, I think they're getting their words confused when they say Tassie talks too much. They don't stress that they mean from an immersion standpoint, because it is difficult to immerse yourself when a character talks a lot. That's why I still think Rebirth would have worked better as a book or like a short film or something. As a video game, it doesn't really stand up too well, because of how disjointed it can be. And it's a lot harder to immerse yourself in Rebirth as a character that's putting yourself in the character's shoes. Let alone the fact that the majority of gamers are male and in their like 20s to 40s, and it's very difficult to try and immerse yourself when you're playing as a pregnant woman. For me personally, I have spent a lot of time with pregnant women because I have 3 sisters, and one of them has been pregnant like 4 times. I should not, yes, 4 times. I should remember that. I'm a terrible uncle. I'm really, really sorry. And a lot of my co-workers have gotten pregnant. Women just seem to get pregnant around me. I don't know what it is. Maybe it's my dashing smile and my amazing personality or my humongous peak. But for me, it was actually very easy to empathize with Tazzy and her whole situation. And for the game to, we're going to get political here. I am for abortion. I'm pro-abortion. I think everybody should have a right to do what they want with their own body. Blah, blah, blah. Make of that what you will. I'm a baby killer. Oh, okay. But for me to have that opinion and then care so much about Tazzy and the baby was really interesting, and for Rebirth to challenge such a core value of mine was super interesting, and that's when I started giving the game more credit, because it deserves that credit, because that was a fucking interesting thing to do, and I have so much more respect for Rebirth after that, after when I realized it did and how it didn't change my mind, but it did introduce a very interesting aspect to me that I previously wasn't really aware of and can't be aware of as a person with a penis. So, and no womb. Yeah, strong and engaging protagonists should be the selling point of your game, not which gender they identify as. I implore you to reconsider your approach to media if that's what you prioritize. That's the nicest way I could word it. Because I originally worded it much stronger than that. This looks worth it to read. Frictional always designs their horror with versatility and risk in mind. There's always a trade-off on expense, a toll to pay. In Penumbra Overture, the enemies can be killed, but the trade-off is the weapons are clunky, and the enemies can call for backup to swarm you. In Dark Descent, enemies are less likely to see you in the dark, but the trade-off is your sanity decreases faster. In Soma, getting caught by enemies won't outright kill you, but the trade-off is you reawaken with reduced mobility and obscured vision. In Rebirth, checking on the baby prevents the fear from lowering and calms Tazzy down, but the trade-off is the reduced mobility because you stop completely dead, as well as the light in the darkness sanity/fear trade-off as Dark Descent. These systems are designed to benefit the player, but at a cost, letting you determine when it's appropriate to utilize the mechanics and stay alive, all while never keeping you fully safe from threats. Frictional are all about player immersion and agency, and allowing the player to do what they feel is right for the situation further increases the link between player and protagonist and synchronizes them to the game world and to the experience. Blah blah blah. Immersion is so important in our games, but it is, and they do such a good job at trying to combine everything together. Oh, these were all written like a day after the announcement as well. I did also contact Thomas Grip for an interview again like I did last time, but he didn't respond, so thank you, Thomas. That's okay, I'll try again. He probably did get swarmed that night with emails. I might talk to Frederick, because apparently Frederick is the go-to man now with all the interviews. So we'll see. Miko's on board for another interview as well. We'll do that a bit closer to the date. We've already talked about Bunker. I forgot to email him back for like 6 weeks. Sorry, buddy. I've been ill, okay? I've been really ill. Yeah, more Bunker talk. What is haunting us? The game description paints there as being only one major enemy, but I imagine there'll be smaller enemy types that act more as debuffs to slow the player down, rather than outright killing the player. We've seen that now with the rats. There's probably going to be other stuff that are just there to slow you down and be an obstacle. From the cover art, it looks like this big crawling, shambling reptile bastard filling up the entire corridor. It's not, unfortunately. I wish it was. That would have been fucking cool to see this huge enemy dragging its way towards you, clawing at the walls and ceiling to try and get to the player. That would be fucking incredible. It reminds me of something I've heard about from RE8. Isn't there like a spoiler for Resi 8? I think there's like a giant baby head that chases you around the dollhouse. I'm waiting for to play the game for myself. And I haven't seen any gameplay on it, but I think there's an enemy that's like that from what I've heard. And that's what it kind of reminds me of. But it's not this big enemy, so it's just another ghoul guy again. We do actually get a good couple of glimpses at the dude in this trailer here. So there are his hands. If you go frame by frame, he pops his little head out. Yeah, so that looks like an eye, and then like his mouth. It looks sort of like a fish. Like a very Lovecraftian fish demon enemy. Yeah, if you see that there. It's kind of xenomorphy as well to me, just the sort of overhanging head type deal. They reused the Rebirth Pterometer. I hope that's a placeholder. If we go frame by frame here, also the flashlight model disappears out of his hand. That's very funny. This looks sort of like an Alien Isolation death animation. You got one big clawed hand with with all of his fingernails. There's the lower jaw and the teeth. He's got the really sharp teeth, and then more human-like teeth. Human nose. There's the eyeball. There's the eye. It looks like it's like biting into Henry's side. So it's sticking with the theme that frictional enemies always have, where it's vaguely humanoid, because it's just human enough to represent a facade of humanity or a reflection of the protagonist. That's something that frictional games do a ton as well, is reflect the enemies being mirrors of the protagonist in some form, to really hammer home the body horror human nature of the enemies and how the protagonist could end up like them. You got in Penumbra, they hold flashlights, the Turnegate hold flashlights, like the player holds a flashlight, so that's like a subtle, and they speak, they're humanoid. In Soma, you've got the Construct, which is kind of a connection to Simon, in a way that it's just this brain scan embedded into this creature. The Construct actually calls out Simon's name, strangely enough. Maybe it is Simon, and it's a brain scan of Simon stuck in the Construct, and that's him saying his name over and over again. But the robot enemies are very much a comparison to Simon and a reflection of him. Rebirth, obviously the ghoul, the harvesters, they're reflections of what Tazzy is going to become if she gets further and further along with the disease. So they always like to have that subtle like perception shift with the enemies mirroring the protagonist some way. So for this guy to be a hunter of his own, a soldier of his own, is kind of interesting, and I wonder how they'll tie that into his design, if at all. World War I soldier who wakes up alone in a dark bunker with only a revolver and a flashlight as he attempts to figure out what happened to his men. So that line paints it as Henry, or is he going to be Henri Clement? Or is that going to be how like we pronounce his name? They're going to be like, Henri! Because they don't go Henry, as Westerners do. So I wonder how they're going to pronounce his name. And also imagine if Rebirth and Bunker were in full French audio. Could you imagine that with just English subtitles? That'd be fucking amazing. That would like elevate it to such a degree for me. I would love that. They're not going to do it, but man, that would be cool. But yeah, his men. So it looks like this guy is the commander of a sort, or just like a sergeant or whatever the fuck. I don't know how the military rank up, but yeah. This is another reason that I think there's going to be the Dark World again, the fictional appalling story. I think them clarifying the fictional aspect of it is going to be more of the supernatural stuff that we've expected from Amnesia with Rebirth. So I imagine that's why the Dark World's going to come back. That's at least something that points to it maybe coming back. Also, they've got all the assets for it still. I don't think they're going to like not utilize them in some way. This is another email that I got when they delayed the game. Which the delay actually works for me because it gave us a proper date, and it's almost the date that the journal starts in Dark Descent. Almost. If it was one day later, May 17th, then it would have been really cool because it would have mirrored Daniel's journal from Dark Descent. He plays taking the role of Henry, a French soldier who is left behind by his battalion and finds himself trapped in an abandoned military bunker. So that's interesting. Left behind we hear this time. So I really don't know what the angle is going to be for the protagonist and the enemy and the amnesia aspect of it. Oh, that's something we can talk about as well. The sanity and the fear level and the removal of those mechanics entirely. I'm not on board with this, to be honest with you. That's the one thing that I don't agree with in this game. For me, Dark Descent sanity mechanics were really fun, and I loved the screen effects and stuff they did. Rebirth, you know how the common complaint was with Dark Descent, the screen effects gave people headaches? Rebirth screen effects made it worse. They gave me headaches. Dark Descent didn't, but Rebirth did because of how it pans the camera by like the 15 degrees and how it, when the wraiths are near, it pushes the camera in and out, and it fucks me up. That gives me a fucking headache. It gave Dark Descent such a unique atmosphere, so to see that go away is a bit upsetting for me because it adds a lot of variety to the visual image, and it plays tricks on you by making you see things that's not there, and by warping the environment around you. It truly makes it feel like the environment is alive and crawling like a teeming pile of maggots. Like it's been made up of maggots, you know, it's like, ugh. But another reason that I'm kind of upset that that's going away is because this doesn't seem like much of a downside. If the generator stops moving, then you're burning fuel in the generator, you might end up in pitch black darkness. You're not going to be in pitch black darkness. If they actually fully go pitch black and there's no light up system, like there is in every other game apart from Machine for Pigs, then that's a bit of a worry because finding your way around is going to be quite difficult. But just to make the monster more aggressive, that doesn't seem like too much of an issue because it's a frictional game. You're going to be able to get away from him. You're going to be able to hide. You're going to be able to do this and that. They're not going to completely fuck you in the arse with this. So to actually get rid of a mechanic that... Because the sanity mechanic is very much a timer that you have to keep an eye on. So to see that go away, with not looking like much of a downside, it depends on how difficult he actually is to get away from as a creature. Maybe he's super difficult, maybe, like this video implies, it's a one-hit kill. If you get caught, the game over. Maybe that would make it very, very much something to worry about. But at the moment, this doesn't seem like too much of an issue, really. The pocket watch thing is interesting. You need a spare inventory slot for the pocket watch. I'll just use my watch. I'll just to keep track of the time. So that doesn't seem, again, like much of an issue to worry about. But it is interesting. I do like that. The randomization, let's talk about that. So the items are randomized. We know that now. The actual bunker itself isn't. Its structure is the same throughout every playthrough, which is nice. Also, the randomization is leading some credence into the game being shorter and focused more on replayability instead of being a longer experience. Soma and Rebirth I really enjoy as stories and games, and I love playing through them again and again and again, just walking around, existing in the Frictional universe. But for gameplay wise, they both fucking suck. Because they're so long and drawn out, and it takes such a long time to get to a certain area of the game if you really like that environment. With Dark Descent, it is a little playground you can hop into and run away from a monster within 2 seconds. Instant monsters in there. So if you like the monster gameplay, like I do, it's Amnesia. It's very much, I'm very much in the camp of finding somewhere to hide and sitting down rather than the camp of stealth around the monster. There's only 2 encounters in Rebirth that are actually Dark Descent encounters where you move and hide and wait for it to fuck off. There's 1 optional encounter, but every other Rebirth encounter is when you have to stealth around, which is fine, but I personally like the more hidey aspect of the game and just finding somewhere to bunker down, funnily enough. So having an actual bunker here with a wardrobe in it, I'm like, oh, because you can. There's 1 area in Rebirth with a wardrobe you can hide in, but it doesn't get used. No one walks out of that little room in the ghoul nest to trigger the ghoul or trigger them and then run all the way back to the room. No one does that. I know I'm just sort of picking, running through, just that, again, this was going to be a scripted video, but I really just don't have the energy. You can hear it in my voice. I can't speak properly. I just don't really feel great, and I don't have the time, frankly, to put together a proper video, so I'm just going to be editing this, chopping this up as I go. I really hope that's okay. I'm really sorry, but I've been so fucking ill, and I want to just play this game. I don't want to talk about it or theorize. I want to just get into it. The bunker is a space you can explore in largely non-linear fashion. It's much more hub-focused than previous entries, which is partly because you have the safe room. The only place you can save the game, planning place, log yourself in, manage your inventory, blah blah blah. Interesting, you can't just, it seems like you can't just save and quit willy-nilly, which is quite interesting. Having limited saves, I imagine, is going to be something that's a thing. But that's a cool, I do like that, if that is how the mechanic works, you have to always get back to the hub. It's kind of annoying, but it's also kind of cool at the same time. But I imagine you can still save and quit, and there's still going to be auto-saves, so... The layout of the bunker is constant. We didn't think it would be possible to randomize it with HPL, because that's not what HPL is built for. It can do simple randomization, but it can't do very huge amounts of randomization. So to have the bunker layer constant, roguelike items, I think that'll be fun. That'll be fine. I'm excited to see how they handle that. But it's probably going to be very simple. Like we see in the trap video, there's a tripwire. It's probably going to be like 1 tripwire or like 2 bear traps, something like that. It's probably not going to be very varied. It's going to be like 1 area in a huge corridor with 1 trap in it that randomizes between playthroughs. So it's probably not going to be that varied. But it's going to be something to look out for, and it's going to make the first playthroughs of the game really interesting, actually. And watching people play the game is going to be really interesting, because who knows what they'll actually add to it. If it's going to be as versatile as they're banging on about, I'm excited to see it. It looks like there's going to be random scripted things stopping you from going to different areas until you happen to find an item which enables you to go to that area. So that's how I think the randomization is going to play into it. Maybe there's going to be like a leaking gas pipe, spewing out gas, and you can only go through there if you happen to find the gas mask, which you might do within 10 minutes, you might do after like an hour. So I think that's how the non-linearity is going to be sequentially. What am I trying to, you know what I'm trying to say. I reckon that's how that will be built up, is every area will be explorable at the same time, more or less. There are also going to be loading screens, but it's probably going to be you won't be able to go to a certain area until you have an item that enables you to go to that area. I love the idea behind it as well. We don't explain everything to the player, we don't hide it either, but we want players to get into that headspace. We even have a message at the start of the game saying, you're on your own now, learn, adapt, experiment. Listening to this and putting aside yourself for a second, like nobody fucking seemed to do with Rebirth. You know how the game tells you immerse yourself in the world and the story? No, literally nobody fucking did that. Nobody. Only the people that truly did that and were able to do that actually appreciate the game for what it is and what it's set out to do. So listen to this time. Fuck, I deleted an interview. Shit. The threat that is haunting you is a lot more active in the darkness. But I wonder how active that's going to be. It instantly comes out of the hiding spot in here, but this looks more like a scripted event than anything else. And you can instantly see, you can run straight away out of that door by moving the barricade, or you can hide in the closet, so there's instantly a reaction for whatever type of player you are. I can't tell if it's distance-based, where it only got triggered when you walked close to it, or if the noises that the character made here by throwing things around randomly, which you do in Amnesia. This is my favourite trailer, teaser, because of how realistic it is, because as an Amnesia player, you just pick everything up and throw everything. So now I'm actually going to have to, like, try and curb that, because I guess if you make too much noise, an enemy comes out, which is cool. It's Alien Isolation meets Monstrum meets Amnesia. I'm here for that. That's a really interesting combination of games. Bit dumb, the tiny little stopwatch taking up a whole inventory slot that a flare can take up. I don't like that at all. But maybe there's different sizes of inventory slots. I have no idea. All of DualShock's interviews are fucking annoying as well, because there's tiny snippets of information spread out across 16 million different interviews. They had one interview with Frederick, just one, and they found a way to parse it out into a bunch of different things for clicks, which is fine. It's online media, it's online news, we know this by now. Unless they have sat down with him multiple times, but I don't think they have. Yeah, don't complain about the gun. Oh, Amnesia used to be great, now there's a gun in it. Shut the fuck up. Just let them try something different. For the love of God, this isn't your game. This is their baby. Let them do what they want with it. Amnesia as a series has always been about being different and interesting. Every Amnesia game is so different from the last one, but they all have these constant themes, which is really interesting to explore. So I'm all for Bunker doing what it wants to do, and being what it wants to be. And I'll accept it for whatever choices it makes. Even if I don't agree with it, I'll still accept it as its own game, which is good. I think more people should do that, because I don't think people give Rebirth any credit, or at least they don't give it the credit it deserves. Combat in Bunker won't be a simple process of aiming and firing. No, it is. We have a lot of animations going on. Well, not for the gun, not for the shooting. There'll be a shooting one and then a reload. That's it. I mean, and the picking up the gun and then the putting the ammo in it and the emptying the ammo. But like that's all of the other actions apart from shooting the gun. You will shoot it once and then run away in the other direction. You know, it is as simple as aiming and firing. Game's grenades also explains you don't actually press a button, you hold down the button to grab the pin, and then you're readying it, and then you throw it. So it is just clicking and aiming. That's it is just as simple as clicking and aiming. Don't be facetious. I'm super happy with the tests we've continuously done on the immersion side. We've rated very highly. We think we did a great job, so we must be right. I mean, I don't doubt it will be fine. It will be very fine. Frictional Games are good developers, but they're 20 years behind everybody else, and they always have been, and they always will be, as long as they're dealing with HPL. But thank God that there are still developers out there working with their own in-house engines, because if everything was made with the same 3 engines, it would be fucking miserable. So enjoy that. We shit on HPL a lot for not being the most versatile, useful engine to work with, but it's damn good. It is super strong, and it's pretty well documented. HPL 3 isn't amazingly documented, and there's not really a lot of good things that people have made with it so far. Not as good as things that people have made with Dark Descent's engine, but Dark Descent's engine now is also open source, which is another great thing to keep in mind. HPL2 is just, it's seen a lot more use, the player base was a lot bigger, so the mod base was a lot bigger. Hopefully, Bunker will actually have custom stories made for it, which will be great. I hope straight off the bat they have custom stories in the main menu, but like if you hover over it, it says coming soon. Something like that, because people were bummed out that it didn't have custom stories, that Rebirth didn't have custom stories available from the start. So just having that as like a sort of teaser to future content would probably be a good idea to do, but they probably won't. I don't like this. It's World War 1, you wake up in a bunker, the exit is blocked, and you need to blow open the exit. That's it. That's all that we're told. That sounds very boring to me. It sounds super simple, which simplicity is great. That's a really good thing. It's good to be simple, but here it just seems like all of the depth and the story is gone, and people hated Tassie as a protagonist and her talking so much that Henry is silent, and I'm not fully on board with that. as long as they handle it decently enough. I hope we still hear him talk sometimes. Daniel talks sometimes, with the little random memory flashbacks that you get when you're walking around. Because he says some really creepy things that if one of them plays at just the right moment is actually really creepy. Just hearing some dude just say, "Is someone there?" after they hear a noise down the end of a hallway. That tiny that tiny amount of randomization that Dark Descent has with its Daniel voice lines is super interesting to me, and every time I play it, it surprises me in like a new way. There's something as simple as a little voice line, and for me who's had like 1,000 hours in Amnesia at this point, across multiple different platforms, for me to still get scared by Dark Descent is incredible. And I love that. You have one big connected environment where the game takes place in. It's then up to you as a player to figure out what to do and how to overcome various obstacles and hazards. More often than not, there are multiple ways of achieving your goal, blah blah blah. Which is interesting. I'm excited to see how that plays out, and how everybody gets around it in different ways. This is complete bullshit. Rebirth's save feature that would allow you to skip a monster encounter if you died. No, that's not a feature. That was a thing that everybody unanimously disliked, the lack of challenge in Rebirth. But it was developed that way so that it wouldn't be too difficult to actually get a good ending in the sense of you don't get two different voice lines that change, where the Queen is like, "You have become a harvester," or Anton turns into his fucking Disney villain type and goes, "We could have gone home if not for you. Look at what you've become through your own misplaced sentiment." You know, you get two different voice lines if you fucked up a bunch in the game. And that's all the consequences for dying, because two of the endings that actually depend on Tazzy being alive will end pretty damn quickly with her becoming a ghoul anyway, so it doesn't matter whatsoever that you become a ghoul at all in Rebirth throughout its gameplay. The whole point of becoming a ghoul is questioning Tazzy's ability to protect her child and be a good mother, but if Amory dies within 2 years of being born, Tazzy's not really going to be a parent for much longer. If Tazzy becomes a harvester instantly after going back to Paris, she's not going to be a good mother. So instantly, all of it is just, all of the build-up that Rebirth tries to have with its don't die in the gameplay is completely lost, which is a shame, but it's just a very poorly thought out, constructed game in a lot of ways. Even fire. You can hold fire, guys. He Kamehamehas somebody. He fucking Hadouken someone. Go on, Henry. Drop him, Henry. We're going for a completely silent protagonist this time, more similar to Daniel. I don't like that. I want to hear little quips and stuff here and then. It will be nice. The semi-open nature of the game means players will encounter fragments of the story in a non-linear order. I do like that. So the whole story will be available to the player, but if I go to one place in my playthrough that you go to like half an hour later, I'll have that piece of story first and you won't. But I won't have the piece of story you discover until I go to wherever you go. So I do like that. You can piece it together in your own way. It is kind of similar to how Soma deals its backstory with the characters, how you can find everybody's bodies in a random order. So I'm interested to see what the story will be like. It will probably just be like 20 seconds of dialogue from a flashback. It's going to be how or one note, which is going to be how the story will get delivered here. So it will be very small, a bunch of very small chunks that you find to piece everything together, which is fine. The term emergent horror has been used by Frictional, which means the creature dogging you throughout the game. Don't use that word. In UK slang, don't use dogging. Don't use dogging. Why did they use that word? Fuck. So gosh, stupid. To remove the sanity mechanic, it is kind of upsetting, but I guess, yeah, something more tangible, the generator's fuel is pretty similar to it. It'll accomplish the exact same things the sanity mechanic existed for. So I suppose I'll just have to make do with it. It'll play fine. 4K visuals on Xbox Series X and S, enhanced shadows, terrain and effects, and higher frame rate. Hopefully this means that it will be 60 frames on consoles, because Soma and Rebirth being 30 frames on console isn't great when it could very well... HBL can support it. HBL3 seemingly can't, which is interesting. If you're a tech head, if you're a fucking idiot tech head who's like, I need to play all of my games unlimited FPS, I need 16 monitors to look at all of my shit. Shut the fuck up. Oh, Amnesia is capped at 60 frames. Oh, I can't. It's literally unplayable. Shut the fuck up. The majority of people with a computer don't have good specs like you. The majority of people don't even have fucking computers that can support this game. I don't know if you know how technology works, but most people don't have the newest stuff. There is a common medium that is still developed and targeted for. PC is just rapidly going up, and if you've gotten yourself used to all the newest, latest shit that you can't even handle a 60 frame game, then it's your fucking fault. Don't blame them. On the other hand, to combat exactly what I just said, Frictional should be urged to make changes to their engine and upgrade and make it so that it's more compatible with different computers and future features, because they're still very much working with technology that was developed 20 years ago before the majority of the fan base was even fucking born, given by the Discord server where everybody talks about fucking Among Us. I hate the Discord server. Sorry, I really don't like the Discord server. Yeah. Don't get your hopes up. Bunker's probably still going to be 60 capped. It's not unplayable. Don't grow up. Don't be like that. It will be fine. It will play the exact same way as Rebirth. It has all the same sound effects, which I'm not looking forward to, because these fucking footstep sound effects, I hate them so much. These footstep sound effects suck. I hate them in Rebirth. They're so loud and pronounced and tonal. Like that one, you feel the scuff of the shoe. It fucking annoys me because you hear it like 3 times out of every 8 steps you take. And it's so tonal and noisy and memorable. And they're not going to change it. And I'm going to notice it every single time I play the game. Oh, I'm not looking forward to it. I would genuinely re-record footstep sounds. I would 100% replace the sounds if I could open the files to replace the sound effects. I 100% would. You can still replace the music super easily, which is fun to do. Rebirth is also a very quiet game. Like, you have to turn it up so much louder with your system volume to be loud, so I do hope that they make the volume louder in this game, because Soma and Dark Descent are super loud games, and that's cool. Can't believe this game allows you to use chemical weapons against Ratatouille. Ratatouille was the dish, not the rat. Shut the fuck up. You're not funny. You're not funny, Jim Bink. Shut the fuck up. This game reminds me more and more of Penumbra. This is very much a Penumbra game. That's another thing to mention. Rebirth is very much a Penumbra game, having 2 different hands that do 2 different things at the same time. You can hold a glow stick and a pickaxe. You can hold a lantern and a fucking little ring watch thing, a ring doorbell. You know, Rebirth is super Penumbra-y with the handhold things. I love that. One thing that Bunker is doing as well, which is a great idea, is it's using a lot of the cut mechanics that Rebirth didn't actually utilize. There are a bunch of things in Rebirth, but never actually utilized in the game. They're going to do it here. One of the things in Rebirth was going to be the ghouls were going to be able to track Tazzy and the character through the walls. This game is doing that, which is great. Hopefully, this enemy can actually crawl, because for the ghouls not to crawl into hidey holes to get you is fucking stupid to me. I know they did that for a balancing reason, to not make the game too difficult, but it is super annoying how they didn't use that to its potential. So hopefully this enemy can crawl, because he's small enough to fit in the tiny little ghoul holes, which annoys me because the ghouls in Rebirth aren't very intimidating. Oh, they're vaguely humanoid. Ooh, vaguely humanoid enemy that's a reflection of what the player can become. It's not that scary when it's just this slightly lanky, spindly fuck. It's not intimidating. The Wraith is intimidating. The Wraith sounds like a fucking every single vehicle car crash compilation combined into one from Live League. The Wraith sounds really cool and looks really cool, but the what are they called? The ghoul just isn't intimidating. And from what this looks like, to me, this looks like some giant creature the size of the corridor. So the fact that it's not is kind of upsetting, because he can't be big. He can't be that big because he has to fit through these little gaps. Which are, again, going to be scattered fucking everywhere, and it's going to be very predictable and annoying. You listen to that, right? And then listen to this. Listen to that noise. You hear that, and then you hear this. I put my microphone over there so you can't hear me as well as you normally would. You can't tell me that doesn't sound like a pig. That sounds like a pig. That's a fucking pig, bro. So similar. I know that's like a very pinpointy thing, nitpicky thing to pick up, because it just sounds like a generic spooky gravelly enemy voice. But to me, that sounds so similar to the pigs from Machine for Pigs. So that's one of the reasons I thought maybe Machine for Pigs was going to make a comeback here. But it does look largely like Machine for Pigs is probably going to be non-canon, because it does fuck up some a lot of Brennenberg shit, with Mandus being Alexander's nephew. Because he's not Daniel's nephew, because Daniel only knew Alexander for like a month. And I can smell the orb upon him, my grandfather's work. Daniel only worked with the orb for like 2 weeks, bro. You know, like Alexander worked with the orb, so but because Mandus is British, everybody's like, oh, he's Daniel's descendant. No, he's not Daniel's descendant. Daniel had nothing to do with the fucking orb, with how it was being utilized in the very least. Alexander was. But Machine for Pigs messed a little bit with the canon. It built on the canon, but I think I think Frictional are moving past. I think they're trying to deliberately avoid revisiting many of the things from the canon to leave it open-ended for players to actually think about what happened and to come to their own conclusion. Like how we don't get a solid canon answer for the ending of Dark Descent. We don't find out if Alexander died or if Daniel sacrificed himself. Or if Daniel died, whatever. We don't find out if Daniel's still alive. We don't get closure for the Brennenberg ending, which is fine. Keeping it open-ended is a fun thing to do. It is nice to have the closure, but it looks like Frictional are largely going to be moving past the things that Machine for Pigs did to the canon, like making the Brennenberg grunt, the pig fusions with the pigmen. I don't think that's going to be a thing that's canon from now on. But maybe if they don't denoise it, then they just won't touch it at all and they won't address it at all. Either approach is fine. Right, I think I talked about everything that I can talk about. I hope I got all my thoughts out, not too rambly. Very excited for this game after Rebirth. I was initially upset with Rebirth. I was disappointed like many people were, but after playing it a couple more times and really reevaluating it as an experience and what they set out to do with it, I'm immensely proud of Frictional Games, and I love Rebirth very much for the experience that it offers. So that's my final opinion, because I know I was very heated. I was very antagonistic in the beginning, if you remember. But Bunker looks like it's going to be a really fine game. I'm really excited to see how it plays out, and how they change and add to the universe of Amnesia, because this isn't the last Amnesia game we're getting. We are getting another one after this down the line. But yes, thank you very much for watching if you watched this whole ramble video. Here's my plug time. I've been plugging someone else's product this entire video. Now it's time to plug my own. I have a new album coming out. It's called To Take a Life. It's coming out the same day Bunker comes out, or at least the same week Bunker comes out. That's another reason I'm happy it got delayed, because I have more time to work on it, because I haven't been able to work on it because I've been incredibly ill. But yeah, it's playing right now. It's going to be playing while I talk. It's a really interesting album, very soundscapey, but yes, it's a 9-track album, very ambient, some dark stuff, some happy stuff, so a lot of sad stuff, and I like what I've done with it so far. And you'll see in like 5 years when I've released all of the other projects that I'm sitting on, I think you'll appreciate it then. It'll take you 5 years for me to make all of these products. So yes, my voice is thrashed. Thank you very much for watching. I hope you enjoyed. New album coming out. Please listen to it when it comes out in May. Hope you're doing well. Please stay safe. For the love of God, please stay safe. My fucking Christ, this world is... We're not going to be here for much longer. But please keep yourself safe and look after yourself. Yeah, have a good day. I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.